I call to order the joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Housing Authority for October 8th, 2019. May we have roll call for council?
Council members Agajanian.
Present.
Devine.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Mayor Najarian.
Here.
May I have a roll call for Housing Authority?
Authority members Devine.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Arazian. Quintero.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Chair Agajanian.
Present.
May we have your report?
The agenda for the October 8th, 2019 joint public meeting of the City Council and the Housing Authority was posted on Thursday, October 3rd, 2019 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Before you, Mr. Mayor and Chairs, is the Director of Community Development regarding program update and approval of marketing plan for monthly housing subsidy program for lower income Glendale senior renters. 1A is City Council motion to receive program update and approve marketing plan or provide direction as deemed appropriate. B is Housing Authority motion to receive program update and approve marketing plan or provide direction as deemed appropriate.
Thank you. Ms. Beers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Housing Authority Chair Agajanian, members of the Housing Authority. We are here today to provide you information related to the subsidy program that you gave us direction on some months ago from Measure S funds that were set aside to provide funding for up to 1,000 households. This afternoon we have Mr. Zovak here who will take you through the presentation, provide you with an update related to a number of areas and ask for your direction on a couple of them. With that, Mr. Zovak.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, members of the Council Housing Authority. As Ms. Beers mentioned, this is an update on the monthly housing subsidy program. It is a program that the City Council considered back in May and June of 2019. At that time, the City Council established a one-year budget for the two-year budget cycle. The program itself is a two-year program. And then they also approved some design parameters of the program. We're here to provide you an update on that. And what we'll be touching on today, is this working?
Yes, it is. Should be. It was the second. The arrows on the right. Here, let me just grab that. In the meantime, let's keep it like this. You can use the mouse.
Now I need my glasses to read that. So what we're seeking, or what we intend to do, is provide the City Council and the Housing Authority a summary. Is that you now?
Maybe, I don't know. We'll troubleshoot again and see what it is. Could be a battery issue.
Can you please take me to page 2? We're here to provide you a summary of the program, remind you of the summary of the program and the approved qualifications. We're also going to provide an update on efforts to secure a decision on Social Security with regards to an exemption of the funding from their benefit calculation formula. We're also seeking some input and approval of the marketing plan that we are proposing. And we'd like to have a discussion and maybe some direction on a potential lottery selection methodology moving forward. Can you have the next slide, please? Just as a reminder, and as Ms. Beers mentioned, the program itself is intended to assist 1,000 qualified households. It would be providing a $300 monthly subsidy per household, and the subsidy will exist for a 24-month maximum period. The program, there are more details provided to you in your staff report under Exhibit 1. We'll just touch on some of the most immediate qualification factors. To qualify, a household must be a renter household. They must be extremely low income. At least one member of the household must be disabled in order to apply and qualify for the program. The household must be considered a senior household, and in that determination, the City Council provided direction that all household members must be age 62 or older in order to qualify. The City Council also provided a priority status to those households in which there might be one member, at least one member, 75 years or older, would have a priority in this program. And then there was a requirement that the applicants of the program must be a resident of Glendale. At the time that the Housing Authority and City Council established the program design parameters, and it was all at that time subject to city attorney review and approval, the City Council had a desire to see a 2-year residency, prior residency to the application process in order to demonstrate resident of Glendale. Since that meeting, the City Attorney's Office has been able to look at that issue, and I'll defer to Mr. Garcia to provide his opinion on the resident of Glendale requirement.
Members of the council, members of the Housing Authority, as noted in the report, a durational residency requirement that a resident or that a beneficiary of a program be a resident for a certain length of time for when that benefit is for public assistance, for subsistence, public benefit programs like that. The courts have been pretty uniform in ruling that such a duration residency requirement would violate the Constitution, both the United States Constitution and the state constitution. We can't require, obviously, that be residents at the time of application, and so that'll be the requirement that's part of the program.
So that is the one change from May and June when you had made those program design parameters approvals. The second update that we're providing is with regards to Social Security Administration. There was a concern, and it was a concern that was seen in a couple of other cities that have a similar program, Santa Monica being one of them, as to how the Social Security Administration would respond to applicants receiving assistance under this type of scenario. There's not a set history of that for the Social Security to rule on. So we actually had to appeal to Social Security individually, provide them our program design parameters, and ask how they would rule in this situation. We did get a response from them after a while, and they responded that payments from the City of Glendale Subsidy Program are to be considered assistance based on need, and that assistance based on need is excluded from income counting purposes under the SSI program. And so anyone participating in the program who happens to be on SSI will not incur any type of negative penalty on their subsidy from SSI. So that's good news. We would like to update you on what staff is proposing as to what the marketing plan could be, and we're willing to receive any input that you may have on it. What we're proposing is that because it is a local program, it is a Glendale resident program only, we've identified just a number of small categories in which we would advertise to. The first would be to everyone that has been on the Section 8 waiting list that is identified as a senior. We would be informing them of this program. We would be informing all of our participants at the ARC and Spar Heights Community Center services of our program. We'd also be advertising to those people on our city's affordable housing interest list. We will also be advertising to all of our Glendale nonprofit social service agencies catering to Glendale senior residents. We would be making a presentation to the Glendale Senior Services Committee. We'd be also providing information to some of the senior daycare facilities located in Glendale. And then we would be making numerous appearances on various local TV community service shows, including GTV6, and advertising on social media. So that's the plan for the marketing. In terms of some of the details of the marketing, due to the large number of program participants that we expect to assist, that's 1,000 applicants, and the anticipated public demand, staff is proposing an application period of 4 weeks. We think that if you have something sooner because of demand, whatever method of distributing applications you should decide on, we don't want to impact those people, those centers, or that process. We think 4 weeks, and if people see 4 weeks, there would be enough feeling of having enough time to be able to apply without everyone rushing down on day one. Also, 4 weeks will be able to give staff some time to be able to make any adjustments that we need to based upon what we see in terms of demand as well. We might want to extend it. We might want to do additional marketing during that period of time. So 4 weeks provides us a lot of flexibility, and we think provides the residents a lot of opportunity to apply. And then we intend to do advertising in phases leading up to the 4-week enrollment and during the 4-week enrollment. Again, rather than have a crush of everyone at a location on day one, We will be advertising to those previous areas that we had mentioned, advertising to them on a one-by-one basis continuing. So starting in 1 week before the application process, we'd be sending out notices to, let's say, the first bullet point on there, the Section 8 waiting list. A few days after that, we'll do a mailer that will then hit these targets sporadically over time so that we spread out the demand and the crowd over the entire 4-week period. And what we are really seeking for, direction we are seeking today from the City Council and the Housing Authority is how you desire, or the methodology you desire to have the application process conducted. There are really two processes. There's a paper application process, which is something that we've been doing for quite a while now in our two most recent projects. Or there's an ability to develop and implement an electronic application process. The paper application process, it's tried and true. It's an ability to pick up an application at a location, take it home with you, fill it out, and then mail it. It requires a small amount of dedicated staff, and it's typically staff that you have at the pickup locations. In our last two application processes, the Vista Grande Courts and the Density Bonus Lottery, we had 4 locations within the city that people can pick up applications. It frees up time and space at the application distribution centers by doing it that way. We also request that applications, once they're complete, people mail those to an established post office box, and that provides a centralized third-party location to receive applications. The one downside to the paper application process is that after applying, it requires extensive time and staff for inputting of that data. And what we have found is that some of the difficulties in doing that is that you have applications that are incomplete. You have applications in handwriting that is difficult for staff to be able to input, to read and input consistently. We also have differences between staff in how they input and interpret what's in front of them as well, is what we've seen in some of our quality control reviews. So there is a downside to a paper application. On the other hand, there is an electronic application that could be proposed. We think that in this particular case, the qualifications are fairly simple. The population is a small targeted population, senior, resident of Glendale. And we think in this particular instance, an electronic application could work and could provide some benefits to all parties involved. So with that in mind, staff looked and developed a very simple software that populates an electronic application database, and it does so based upon a current California driver's license or California ID. It's simply swiping the ID through a card reader, and it takes the information of the name, address, and license number or ID number of the applicant and populates it into a database. And then, although there are some comments and or designations that the applicant has to make with regards to their being under a certain income criteria to qualify, the applicant being a senior and being disabled, there are some yes or no questions that an electronic application process can ask and prompt the applicant to answer. And then immediately after applying, a receipt can be generated. That receipt could include the applicant's name, their information, and provides immediately a tracking number that they will then use for the life of their application, not just the applying process, but to an eventual lottery process if they should qualify. So that's immediate, as opposed to a paper application where it comes a few months later, after it's been inputted, after it's been reviewed. We took some time to test this software. We came out with about 2 minutes to process a one-person household, about 4 minutes for a couple, which is what we expect these applicants to be, either a single or a couple. And the information is immediately uploaded into a database. And so what that does is save time on the back end of an application process of the staff review and staff inputting. And it's just something that we are presenting, and staff could go either way that the council should direct us to, but we would like some input on this. And then finally, the staff would also like to see if there is some some direction or thoughts on what an eventual lottery selection model might be. This is not something you necessarily have to decide now. If you have questions, we can get back to you with a report later on down the line. But given that we are looking at possibly an electronic application process, would an electronic lottery selection method be something that the council would be interested in as well? Our traditional lottery selection is the drum and ticket. That is televised on GTV6 here in the chambers. The drum is spinning, it stops, we pull some numbers out, continues, we spin it again, and we pull sets of numbers out. Traditionally, in our affordable housing projects, we pull about 300 people. So an process like that could take about 2.5 to 3 hours. With 1,000 households that we intend to assist, we probably need to pull close to 2,000 names to go through and qualify. A process like that, using the drum and ticket method, could take either all day or possibly 2 days to be able to complete. There are some applications that are out there, software applications that will allow you to, much like the California Lottery, where numbers are popping up graphically, there are programs like that that could be pursued if that's something that the council would like us to go after. The advantage is that it could be much quicker than a traditional drum and ticket method. So with that, that's our presentation. If you have any questions, be able to answer them for you.
Okay, so which, you'd like our input and direction on the marketing plan?
Marketing plan with regards to a paper application or an electronic application?
Well, Mr. Agajanian.
I have, there are families or persons who is unable to do electronically. They need application to be filled up, then what will happen?
So electronically, the process is that we, and maybe I skipped over this, the proposal is that we will have one central location here at City Hall that people can come to and apply electronically. So they would not be able to apply at their own home over their computer. And that was the other thing. Given this population of a senior, we felt an electronic application would only work if it was being inputted by somebody else. And then we looked at the ease of inputting and came up with the card swipe idea. So under this proposal, applicants would come down to a central location here at City Hall that would be staffed, in which staff will take their IDs, swipe it through a computer, and have it populate their application. If someone cannot come down to City Hall to apply in person, then a reasonable accommodation could be made, and it would be advertised that way, in which an application could be mailed to them and then returned to the city. That problems exist as well if you had a paper application process. If you had 4 locations at City Hall, throughout the city, and someone couldn't get down to City Hall for an electronic application, the same argument could be made that they couldn't get to any of the 4 locations to pick up a paper application. And so in that particular instance, you're looking at a reasonable accommodation.
The second question I have is, I'm not in favor of electronic lottery. That will cause problem that some say that this is arranged. They want to see the numbers, that it's not hidden. Electronically, we don't know what the process is. I believe in that electronic system, but it's hard to explain that to some group of people, that they do not believe it. They will think that computer is able to do everything and this is arranged. So I would like to see that we do on the regular lottery system. If we have to bring 4 or 5 drum and tickets to do it, I think it will be better. It will be more believable when we do that. Thank you.
I have a question. I know that producing an ID has been challenged in some states, in terms of voting, having a chilling effect on voters. Do we run that risk here, Mr.?
I don't think so. I mean, voting, which is generally prescribed as a fundamental right versus benefit, discretionary benefit that the city is providing, I don't think you're going to run into the same constitutional challenges you would with voting.
How about applicants who are not documented? Do we preclude them from participating in this if they've met all the other criteria as it stands now?
If you look at Exhibit 1 in your report, and it's something that we reported back to the City Council when we were setting the program parameters of this, the Finance Department, as mandated by the IRS, has a requirement that each person receiving a subsidy have a legitimate tax ID number in which they could be 1099 annually for what they are receiving in terms of the subsidy assistance. That is the only criteria established in the program that would, if anything, kind of address the question that you're asking. It's not mandated by the program itself. It was never a discussion with the City Council, but through this requirement of the IRS, it leads to that.
Okay. Mr. Garpetian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On application period, you mentioned that staff will reserve the right to extend the application period as if necessary. How would that work?
Well, it's more so for the electronic process, and as we indicated, that it can take 2 to 4 minutes to process a single person or a couple. If there are days in which we have, and with 8 staff members manning stations, doing intake all day long, that's about processing from 700 to possibly 800 people. And that's assuming someone sits right down, has everything ready, there are no questions, just some immediate formalities, swiping the card, thank you very much, good luck to you. If it gets to the point where we have 900 people standing in line, we'd want to be able to take those people that won't be seen that particular day and move them to a set time later on in the week or in the next week. So the 4-week period will allow things and events like that for us to be able to juggle demand.
Okay, so
You don't necessarily have that with a that concern with the paper application process. You just don't want to run out of paper applications. You're just basically at the Xerox machine printing more, and if there are 900 people in line, you're simply just standing, giving them out, and then everyone can leave. As opposed to with electronic, people are waiting to get processed.
right, so I'm in favor of both methods. I mean, you can do electronic at the City Hall or Perkins Plaza and also have applications available. Because if the beauty of applications being available is if they cannot come and look at the criteria that we have, over the age of 72, plus one of them has to be disabled, right? That's part of our criteria. So for them to come to City Hall and wait for an hour or two may not be that easy. But if the applications are available in different, 3 or 4 locations, their kids can pick it up, their grandkids can pick it up and bring it home, and they can go over it and make sure all the information is correct. Even if they come to the City Hall, somebody has to bring them there. If they come, I know we will have translators and everything, but I think I'm in favor of both. As far as the lottery goes, I'm with Mr. Agajanian. I think we have to do it in a traditional way. The 1099s, are we going to 1099 1,000 people every year?
Correct.
Is that what we're going to do? Okay. And when are the applications, if everything goes right, when would the applications be ready?
If it's a paper when would the application period be ready?
Yes.
We would look at starting sometime in November.
Sometime in November and close by mid or end of December. And when can the program start?
If it's a paper process, we are probably looking at more so towards February of March to start to schedule the lottery itself.
It takes 3 months to
It takes quite a bit
process
of time to be
1,000
able to process.
application?
No, it takes 3 months to process 8,000 applications, 9,000 applications.
Okay.
You're not going to have just 1,000 apps
That is
all
another
qualify.
That's another challenge. If it's in here, then if you have 5,000, 6,000 people trying to apply, I think it will be very challenging. So, and the last last item is the residency. So at the time of submitting their application or applying, they have to be a resident of Glendale. And how do you verify that? They have to have a utility bill, or how can you verify? If I move here today and say I live with so and so, so use someone else's, address or something. How do we verify that?
So remember, they're not necessarily proving that to apply itself. They are
I understand.
certifying, yes, I am certifying as of this time I'm a resident of Glendale. If they pass the screening process, if they are eventually selected in the lottery, then we would look to and ask them to be able to provide information that demonstrates they were a resident of Glendale at the time they applied. And we had checked with the city attorney's office whether or not that timeline is day one for everybody, and it's the actual date they submit an application within any period within that 4-week period. So every day will be a different group to show. It's not all on day one of the application, just so that you know. But then we would, as qualifying them, we would look at a number of different things. Utility bills, and if they're renting, then they must have a lease agreement. They must have a month-to-month tenancy agreement. They have other types of bills that they receive and mail that they receive to be able to demonstrate. There's also GWP utility checks that we can do as well. But I should say that we did, as part of this process and kind of putting this together, we did meet with IPA staff who comes in and audits our typical lottery processes and got their input on this. They were intrigued with the electronic application process, but the one thing they did say, in the event that if it did come up as a question, not to have two processes, not to have a paper, not to have an electronic, one or the other. For tracking purposes, it is just much easier from an audit perspective to have one method in place and be able to reconstruct applications as opposed to two different methods and trying to bring them into one type of format. So the recommendation is not to have a paper and electronic. It's either one or the other.
My vote would be for the paper.
Ms. Devine?
Okay. Couple of questions first. On the Exhibit 1, can you explain occupying, this is under minimum qualifications, the second bullet point, occupying a bedroom as part of a family unit does not qualify for the program?
Correct. That was a discussion that we had.
If one person is applying for this that lives in the bedroom, or it has to be the family unit that applies? Is that what that means?
No. So what that is doing is, and if you recall the discussion we had about possibly seniors living with extended family members, there was a desire not to have eligible people that are living with extended family members and saying, I'm renting out a bedroom. My son and daughter live in the other bedroom, and my grandkids are in bedroom number 3. That is not, the council at that time had said, that does not qualify as a renter household in that type of scenario.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
I should say that doesn't qualify as a renter household. The council wanted to assist with this program.
Right. Okay, and when it comes to all of these disabled and the seniors and the priority status, that's all based on low income. I mean, that's all based.
Extremely low income.
Extremely low income. Okay, that's fine. I don't know what this ID is that they can, like if the 75-year-old, they may not have a driver's license, but what's the ID that they can swipe?
A California ID.
Oh,
If
is
you
it
don't
a
have a
Cal-
driver's license, then you're getting a California ID.
Oh, I had no idea.
And it's simply just an identification for yourself. We also spoke with senior services, park staff, about whether or not they felt requiring a California driver's license or ID might prohibit people from applying. And they said it's very common that all of their guests and applicants, residents that they assist have that.
Have these IDs, good, okay.
There might be some outliers, but they didn't think it would
Okay.
inhibit anyone from applying.
Okay, and you, I don't know if you hit on this or not, but it says that software designed to ask only 3 yes or no questions, and I think you hit on that a bit. Can you give me any
The
idea?
questions would be, are you a resident of Glendale?
Glendale?
Are you disabled? And the third
Age?
question?
What?
Income. Do you meet the income?
Income.
Does your income?
So
is your
nothing
income
about
within this?
age or just,
No, the ID tells us.
oh, okay. So you
So
get a lot
at
of
the end of the day-
information from the ID.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we'd be able to sort the database and say, give me everybody that's 62 or older. Those are the ones that qualify.
And my last question is, the receipt that, that is used for the lottery, if we use the paper application, then do we have to send out we have to mail the receipts, don't we, to each applicant so that they know what their number is? That would be an extra expense.
Correct, and that typically takes place after a number of months of inputting information into a database,
Yeah.
then screening them for eligibility.
Yeah.
So what we've heard people in the past say is, I mailed in an application, I don't know if you got it because I got nothing back. Well, yes, it takes 2 to 3 months to be able to process and tell you, yes, you qualify, no, you don't qualify, here's your application number if you do qualify. We had just thought with an electronic application process, immediately they have at least a ticket saying, I've applied.
Yeah.
And at some point in the future, I'll be told whether or not I qualify. Okay. Just in case there was added interest, can you please show
yeah.
the video? We did a quick 1-minute video
Okay, oh, good, yeah,
of what the process is,
great.
or could be. Bottom left. Some- 2 gentlemen from Central Casting.
I'll make sure we have the volume. There's no volume.
There's no audio.
Okay,
So they're first asking, how many people are in your household? Do you have your ID? The information gets populated, and then they start to ask some of the certifying questions. First, they want to know, because people's addresses on their IDs are often different, so there's just 2 questions they ask to clarify that. You're in Glendale, yes. Is your household income below this? Yes. Disabled? Yes. And then we want a contact information. That's not on a driver's license or ID. So they have the ability to enter it in. Then we ask them to please read the screen, confirm the information is true and accurate.
and that's it?
That's it. They confirm. Phone number, confirm. 3 statements, they affirm to the yes. And then immediately this application prints.
And that has a number on it for the lottery?
Right, you'll see.
And so,
We'll
okay.
do a close-up on it. Dear Joe Smith, thank you. Here's your number, randomly generated number. Here's some of the information you told us. And then a date stamp and time stamp.
Okay. And then from there, that will go into, that information stays in the computer for the electronic lottery? And then
Well,
it
that
just
information
spits
stays
out?
in the computer for the screening, the eventual screening of the applicants and things like that,
Right.
and is the basis for an electronic lottery if that's the
Lottery,
case.
right.
But
So
it can
every-
also be the basis for a paper lottery as well.
All right. So I think for efficiency and expediency, I think the electronic application process and the lottery is the best way to go. I think it's easier, it's faster. And staff, I think probably less staff time. So that would be my preference.
Mr. Quintero?
So I think we're going to be I know we're going to be working with thousands and thousands of applicants. So I think that the electronic process is going to be a much more efficient way to do it. And like you say, once it's complete, it's put in their hand and they know they're in the system. I agree with Mr. Agajanian that there'll be people that are going to be very suspicious of the whole electronic process. But my experience in the past has been anyone that doesn't get Section 8 or doesn't get the senior housing is immediately suspicious that they were passed over in favor of personal friends. So I don't think that'll change the mindset. I just think because of the numbers, I mean, to me, it just makes more sense to do it. And then maybe we'll be able to do this as senior projects come online and other housing projects in general. I think we'll establish a system. So,
Mayor, I have another question about, if I may, about the transparency of this. If we do the electronic lottery, that Mr. Quintero is supporting. Is there any way of having any transparency? Is it done in front of people, or is it done in a
It could,
You know, vacuum?
Yeah, much like the California lottery on the Saturday
Oh,
nights televised
okay.
on TV.
So it
would
is
be televised
televised?
as well.
Okay,
And
so-
numbers will be able to, some computer graphic will be popping up on the screen.
Okay, there you go.
And recorded that way.
It would be done here in the council
Yes.
chambers and televised.
Thank you.
We'd have to,
Ms. Perozian?
Microphone.
Microphone.
Thank you for the report.
yes.
So I have a question. In both lottery, traditional and electronic, after the selection process, are the winners get the letters home?
Yes,
After-
the winners will get letters stating that they were selected, and there will be next steps for them, and those not selected would get letters as well.
Okay. Thank you.
So I am in favor of the ID card registration because I think that leaves less chance of error and incomplete filling out of the form and possible rejection. If you have a 75-year-old disabled individual who isn't proficient in English and screws up the name, let's say he puts his address where it should be a name or completely screws it up, he would possibly be rejected from the application process, would he?
Correct.
So I think the best way to do it then is just hand him the card, zip it through. In the rare case that someone cannot bring himself or herself to the station to sign in or has some other difficulty, then maybe we'll have a special accommodation, which we need to do. But I think we should just do the ID card, zip it through. There's no question about how old they are, what their name and address is. Answer the 2 questions, 3 questions, boom, you're done. As far as the selecting in the lottery process, I just think people need to see their ping pong ball come up or their
Ticket pulled out by
ticket
hand.
pulled out or something.
Sure.
I think they're going to be, they're highly suspicious even when we do it that way. Someone was telling me, and I mentioned in our briefing, that there's ways to game that system. You make one ticket a little bit heavier, you put a little crease in it so it's more susceptible to be lifted and grabbed by the hand. Even with that type of process, they're figuring out ways that this was done. If we just have a computer spit out numbers, it was hacked, it was this, it was that.
Program.
Can be hacked. A computer program can be hacked. So I would be leaning towards the manual, slower, more time intensive. I understand all that, but I think it might save us for some criticism. Mr. Garbage.
So, in order to apply, the person who is disabled has to be here, or maybe there is a married couple, one is disabled, one is not. The husband shows up and says, I'm not disabled, but my wife is, and she's not here. Does the person, one of the criteria is to be disabled, right?
Right.
So the disabled person has to be here in person to apply, or can the spouse apply for both of them?
The spouse what we would be proposing is that the spouse could apply for both of them as long as the spouse has the ID for that person.
ID for the spouse that is
Correct.
disabled?
Correct.
And
So
the
so if someone comes down and says, my spouse couldn't make it, they just can't walk the steps needed, here's my ID, here's my spouse's ID.
And then you don't know that the ID that he or she brings is actually the spouse, right? Because they
Correct,
may
you
not
don't.
have the same last names.
Correct.
And so,
You would have the same situation, though, with the paper application. That really, a situation like that really doesn't get addressed until eventual screening, if they were ever selected.
And how do you determine that they're disabled? To have a doctor's letter, or?
Now, there are two ways you could, and we discussed this when we were setting up the design program parameters at the previous meeting. There's a Social Security determination that you can provide, or there's a doctor determination that can be provided.
Okay, so if they cannot attend in person, they can call, and there will be a phone number for us to mail them an application. Am I correct?
So in another scenario, when it's just one person applying and they cannot attend in person, they could call and ask for the reasonable accommodation of the application to be mailed to them, yes.
So if they're or two,
Yeah.
they can, so get ready to mail a lot of applications. I'm telling you, many people will come in and see the line and see, and I don't know why is it that we're testing this program here. We had 18,000 applications for our 31 units that was in different projects. We did a paper application. My question is, why is it that you're testing it with this program?
Two reasons. One is that this demographic for this program is a fairly simple one and could lend itself to an electronic application process. If we were ever going to do one, this might be the one to do it. And if you recall, the 18,000 applications, it took approximately 8 months to process.
Sure, I know.
We didn't think that the council wanted 8 months to process, say, the
No, we
monthly
don't.
housing subsidy
No,
program,
we
so
don't.
we are looking at alternatives to present.
Okay, I mean,
It's up to the
votes are
council. We
down,
could
we-
easily go paper application if that's the route, if there are concerns of people waiting, the ability to come down and bring an ID. We could certainly do a paper process. We just wanted to provide choices.
But you just mentioned that you're recommending to do only one system, not two.
Correct. One or the other.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't we vote on this? There's a council motion and a housing authority resolution, and you want direction as to the type of application process, paper or plastic?
Or this
For the
proposed
ID card?
electronic.
And the second one is the selection method. So would someone like to make a motion for council incorporating either one of those?
I'll move
So
the
it's council and
electronic-
authority.
I'll move the electronic applications,
And how about the selection?
the electronic selections, although I know I can still...
Want to make them separate motions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to make them separate motions?
Let's
Mr.
make
Mayor?
them separate.
Okay.
Why don't you start with the
electronic-
application
okay,
process?
Right, okay. So
And
I'll
that's
move
with the ID card
applications.
application
Correct,
process.
correct.
Is there a second for that?
Seconded.
Okay, roll call for council.
Council members Agajanian?
No.
Devine?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Garpetian?
No.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Should we do the same motion for housing? They have to be,
It-
the same, right?
Yeah, they should be, but again, it's the council, it's a
Housing,
council
there are-
program, but
There are more
correct.
housing.
Well, let's see where it
But
goes.
the- I mean-
So I'll make that motion
make the
for the
motion for-
housing authority.
For electronic.
Electronic ID application.
Mr. Mayor,
At the end
before
of
we-
the- If I could just point out, so both of them were sort of known files, we're doing motions so we can get direction. It's a council motion that would control because it's a council program, it's a
Oh,
city
okay.
program.
Then let's go to the selection process now. Will someone make a motion regarding the selection process, either the manual selection or the electronic?
I make a
Number
motion
generated.
for it to be manual.
That's for housing or city council?
It's city
Council.
council.
So motion for a manual selection process. Is there a second?
Manual?
Yeah, manual. the one
Paper.
old one.
Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Council members Agajanian?
Yes.
Devine?
No.
Quintero?
No.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. So
So,
what's left?
A housing authority motion, you can just do a motion to note and file the report, or you can do on each one, but
Move to note and file the report.
Second.
can I ask one more question related to this item?
It's now, I've turned it over to the housing authority chair.
Okay.
For the closing the meeting?
no, for noting and filing the report.
Do you have a question on the floor?
But there, you had a
There's a
question, there was a motion and a second, but you have a
I'll
question from
move it.
Councilmember,
I'll
Housing
move it.
Authority Member Garpetian.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Do you want to, he wants to talk.
Yes, please. You have something to say?
I have something to say.
Oh,
I have
I'm
a
sorry.
question. So I just want to make sure that the paper applications will be available for people. You cannot tell them, you cannot submit a paper application. That I want to make sure of that. This is, if that's not the case, this whole thing is not right. You can't force people to just only apply electronically if they're not able to.
Correct. There's a reasonable accommodation process that we hope will be very limited in those that need it, but a paper application alternative would be available to address an issue such as a reasonable accommodation.
But the paper applications, so that we're clear, the paper application process would be available upon request.
Correct.
Not that they would be
There won't be stacks of
available
applications.
at different counters. That's what the vote was. So I want to make sure that the Housing Authority as well as the City Council is clear on that piece of it.
If I may, again, to be very clear, we would like to know that the person simply cannot come down here and we're making a reasonable accommodation, not simply, can you send me one? Okay.
I'm too busy.
But how would you determine if they can or cannot over the phone?
We can ask them why they're not. I mean, again, we don't want to just have people call up and say, I can't get down there, will you send it?
How about electronically they fill up on the computer? Somebody helps them to do it. What's wrong with that?
No, this proposal is strictly coming down to one location and applying electronically. We are not proposing doing anything online.
No, I'm filling up an application and send the information to us. We cannot convert that to your system then?
No. No, and it kind of goes back to IPA and their desire to see as many applications being done in one methodology with only a few outliers being a reasonable accommodation. The ability to be able to do it online, in which the density bonus application process was online, created some havoc with the process. And that's something they don't wish to see duplicated.
So even they fill up online is not acceptable?
There is no method, there's
There won't be
no
a
process
process.
proposed to be able to receive something online, no.
But why? If you do it with the, if they come, it's basically they're doing it online when they come to the city hall, right? You swipe their ID and you fill out the application. Why can't they fill out the same application at home?
Well, we've already
Because
voted
that's-
on this.
No, I know, but
That's
I
not
know we voted
online.
on this. I can call for reconsideration because you don't want to limit people to just one location. I think this is not right.
There's no doubt in my mind that an applicant is going to be absolutely certain that their information has been submitted to the city, and if at all possible, they are going to come in person and submit their electronic ID card and not take the risk of placing it in the mail. Did it go to the right address? We've had problems with that before. Did I get the stamp? Did they receive it? They're going to want to, not everyone, I think a vast majority are going to want to be there. Here's my card. Okay, you're registered. And then next in line.
At the end of the day, the desire of the staff is to have a streamlined, efficient process whereby the applications can be processed in a timely manner, and a subsidy program, which is a 2-year program, as you're aware, can be put into action as soon as possible. Whatever form the City Council and the Housing Authority wants us to take in terms of process, options were given to you. We've received that feedback. There was a vote taken. Again, there could be reconsideration based on.
Well, it has to be made by someone in the prevailing side.
Correct. So it is up to.
Mr. Karpetjan cannot make that motion.
It's up to the City Council in terms of how you want to move forward. But our desire is to have a streamlined process at the end of the day, where the timeframes are short, we're efficient, there's less likelihood of mistakes happening in between that process, hence not having the electronic piece from someone's home or elsewhere, as well as the city, as well as an application process. That is really the only desire for the staff, is to streamline it. No other purpose.
So my question is, are we going to do the same thing for every other project we have?
No, at this point, given this program and this target population, this is where staff felt that an electronic application process could potentially work and is what we proposed. That's not to say the next project, let's say it's a tax credit project for families, extensive questions that need to be answered, an electronic application may not be the best methodology. It might be back to paper. This is not necessarily setting a new standard moving forward. And to go back to your question, submitting electronically in person is different than submitting online. Electronic is not online. Electronic is simply being at a computer, at one designated computer, and doing the process of swiping the card. Online is you're over the internet submitting. There's a difference in those two.
No, I understand that, but we're going around the same circle. It's okay, we voted on it already, so. But I'm really disappointed in the fact that we're forcing, especially the segment of the community that are 75 plus, and they're not computer savvy, to come in and answer questions, and without their children being there or whatever, being there to help them. Now they have to bring somebody with them to make sure they answer the right question and read the statement at the end and approve it. But nevertheless, I think this is not the right way of doing this.
Aren't we going to have staff there to help? Aren't you putting
Yes.
staff there?
Mr. City Attorney, what is left for Housing Authority now?
I don't think you had a roll call on the Housing Authority motion,
File.
note and file.
I'm sorry?
There was a motion and a second to note and file, so we can take roll on that.
Okay, good.
Authority members Devine,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Brazing,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Chair Agajanian.
Yes.
Move to adjourn for Housing Authority.
Second.
Move to adjourn for council.
Second.
Council's adjourned. Call to order the October 8th, 2018 meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have roll call?
Council members Agajanian,